Welcome to Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Myles Baldwin from Myles Baldwin Design. Myles runs a landscape design company based in Sydney, New South Wales, in Redfern. And he's got a team of 16 landscape architects there, which I found amazing that there's that many people working on the business. In each episode, I was asked where people started, and it's fascinating the different stories, like how some people start at the bottom and work their way slowly up to where they are now, and then other people get lucky where they start. So Myles' first job was cleaning toilets at a nursery. That's so it doesn't get much lower than that. But then he worked at Bronte House, and then his first project for himself after that was a couple of acres in Sydney as well. So like he said, he didn't have started the small terraces and work his way up, and then he's continued on those high-end projects from there. And also like how a lot of the guests I talked to study at a certain college, like he studied at Ryde Tafe, which is pretty popular for New South Wales designers and construction people who are good with their horticulture. So it helps where you go to school. You've obviously also got to have the passion as well. And yeah, he had a construction company and maintenance as well as the design business at one point, and then ended up just shutting it down. So it was just design, and he talks about the challenges of designing while you're running those businesses as well. And something else I like he spoke about was about he's got 16 landscape architects and he uses them all to their strengths. So it's not a very common way of thinking about things, but it obviously makes a lot of sense when you do. So there's no point getting 16 people to all do the same thing. You want to work out what they're good at and get them to focus on that. And also like how he mentions his presentations, like how he does his presentations to clients, and how he'd save a bit of time by the way he does it. So a heap of advice in here. So hopefully you enjoy this chat from Myles Baldwin. Myles, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
I started in the industry initially riding my bike from my house down to the local nursery, where after school I thought I'd be down there selling plants and curating things and helping out around the nursery. And the nursery manager at the time, his name is Finbar and Leary, it's Cat's Nursery. He got me cleaning toilets. So my first experience in the world of horticulture was cleaning the toilets at Cat's Nursery, bringing in the signage and quickly walking around watering the plants before they looked a little bit too crook in the afternoon. Aside from that, when I left school, I got, I was just gardening at home and all that sort of stuff. My parents was at school and family friends. And so I had a passion for it. And after school, I was lucky enough to get an apprenticeship in horticulture at the Royal Botanical Gardens, Sydney. So I worked there as an apprentice horticulturist, doing my training for 4 years. And if anyone knows, working at the RBG, they move you around different areas. So you get experience in the landscape section, the nursery trade, the contracts department, the rose garden, which I got sentenced to for about 6 months. And, worked in some of the older foreshore gardens, but I did love my time in Government House. I think working up, those perennial borders and all that sort of stuff, and with a great gardener called Martin Zieholz, who was a fabulous gardener who did his training in the Black Forest in Germany. So I got this fabulous training in perennials from him. But started for Botanical Garden Sydney.
So did you work with Graham Rowe there? Were you there at the same time? Were you studying?
Yeah. Graham he's the year behind me as an apprentice. Yeah. So I met Graham there, and then a few years afterwards, I think working for me over at Bronte House and various contracts that we had started off when I started my own business.
Yeah, because he was the first guest I had on the podcast, and that was the first time I'd heard about that apprenticeship system that they have at the Royal Botanical Gardens. Sounds like such a great idea that you try different things.
It was fabulous too. Like when I think myself and Graham actually started out there was I know in my year alone there was 250 applicants and only 4 positions. So you're very, very lucky to get the job. I remember going in there with my dad's tie on, and shaking and handing over photographs of gardens I've made around the house and all that sort of stuff. And I must have said something right. But these days it's a little bit sad. They actually sort of struggle to fill positions. There's a lot of contracting going on. I almost shed a tear walking through the RBG these days.
Yeah, right. That's crazy that things are going backwards. The same with Burnley, which is like the most popular college in Melbourne for horticulture.
Yeah, Burnley really well.
Yeah, that's gone downhill as well.
It is a bit sad, and I don't know. There's the importance being laid out on horticulture and importance laid out on gardening. I don't know, everyone wants to do something else. The kids these days, where do you kind of start? Yeah, just the general trend around horticulture. Like in the UK, if you've worked on the same property for 30 years, you got a medal from the Queen for services to horticulture.
Yeah.
Here, you possibly called lazy or inventive because you haven't sort of branched out and done other things. So culturally, it's possibly an issue at the moment.
Yeah. So where did you go to after finishing up there?
Since I left RBG, I studied, or while I was there, I studied design, studied landscape design at Ryde Tafe, Ryde Horticultural College, I think they like to call themselves. And I thought I'd take a little bit of time off. I looked at a couple of jobs with prominent designers around Sydney at the time. Peter Fudge was one of them. There's the late great Peter Fudge. And a couple of other designers. There's that era around kind of backyard blitz and all that sort of stuff going on. And I think Jamie had a couple of jobs floating around. But I got a phone call from a man called Leo Schofield, who is director of festivals down in Melbourne, was director of festivals in Sydney, and he had a fabulous garden at a place called Bronte House. And Leo had his previous garden had just kind of finished up, and there was this sort of half-finished, landscape. It's about 1 3/4 acres on Bronte Beach, which is a pretty big piece of landholding for that part of the world. And the house was built in 1845. And I was able to go in there and pull this garden together from lots of different ideas from lots of different people, including, Leo and my predecessor there and Michael McCoy had a look at various things there. And I was able to kind of pull this thing together, and I worked on it solidly for a year, and then we launched it to the public, and 3,500 people turned up. So it's 3,500 people one day. We opened it for the weekend. I think about 8,000 people came through for the weekend, and literally that was my first 6,500 clients. So I just started my new business, Myles Baldwin Design, and I was doing maintenance and gardening and construction like you kind of do. And my first job out of Bronte House was 2 acres in Pelbury Hill. So I had a bit of a funny one where I didn't really go through and slug it out doing a few terraces and stuff like that. I went from the Royal Botanical Gardens to a heritage home to these really interesting properties, and a little bit nervous to say the least. I think turning up to those sorts of jobs, obviously made mistakes sort of going through it and made sure that the clients didn't see any of them and they all got the right thing. But it was tough learning to do stuff like that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what end of the market you start at. Everyone makes mistakes at the start and just all the way through.
Yeah. I do wish I had a mentor, I guess, as far as the industry went and understanding how to run a landscape business and understanding that sort of stuff. I had plenty of cultural mentors through Leo and the various clients that we got working in Government House. At the time, I befriended Governor Gordon Samuels, and he gave me some wonderful advice over the years. But running a contracting firm was probably not one of them. But it all kind of started from there, and it went for a while as a landscape maintenance, construction, and design business. And you'd design to go and you build that, and you might run 2 or 3 gigs at any one time. But over the years, the design business got busier and busier, and I was lucky enough, around about 2009, to be able to shut up shop there and get really hand over the maintenance gig to other people, and pay off everything, those bits and pieces, and literally go solo as just doing a design studio.
So how many people did you have at the most?
At the most, with the old biz,
Yeah.
I think we had about 8 in garden maintenance. We had 2 crews running in landscape, so there's another 8, I'll say there. And then we had a design studio with a couple in the background there. So 18, I guess.
Yeah. Was it hard taking on the construction work?
No. I found the ability to sort of sit above all those things and be a landscape designer and be, I was a very good gardener, and I imparted a lot of knowledge on gardening to those guys. I think running a construction, for me, I found it difficult to literally make money out of that. I was putting a lot of trust in a lot of people, and if the foreman didn't come through with the goods, then they'd stuff something up and whatever. I think the idea of specialising is something that I'm a big fan of. Don't spread yourself too thin over the industry. I think, being good at construction and really focusing on delivering that fabulous product often kind of stifle the idea of design, because I might be designing something that could be difficult to create, which then sort of makes it sort of difficult in that entire design and build process. I think it's better off the other way around. Yeah. So it was a reasonable business, but I'm certainly better off in the position now where we're just working as creatives.
Yeah, well, a lot less can go wrong in design as well, I think.
I don't know about that, actually. There's a lot of big calls you got to kind of make at the start, and if that big call at the start doesn't work, you are the one to blame. To the point of construction, there's you got a document, and you're building that off there. People bring an awful lot of trust in you, your clients, the money that's sort of flowing around in this. It can be quite stressful, and I've got to get it right.
Yeah. So how many staff do you have now at the moment?
Yeah, so we've been building up over the last few years. We're currently running a one solid studio out of Redfern in Sydney, and there's 16 landscape architects, plus back office on top of that, accounting and my general manager. So again, the idea of finding the things that you're good at. I'm a good gardener and a good landscape designer. I'm not a business manager. So one of the big things that I did quite a few years ago now was get out of actually managing the company. So I can work as creative director and do the things I excel at, and you employ people who are much better at you at other things. I did my training in the era when CAD wasn't around. I still don't know how to work CAD properly. Okay, we've got 16 people here that are far better at that than I am. I certainly know what I think looks good on the screen, but I have to, which button do you press? And how do you can't do that. Look particularly old in the office.
So do you do hand drawings?
Yeah, mate, I had a drawing board. I used to sit on the end of my, I didn't even have a chair. I sat on the end of my bed in my parents' house with a very expensive drawing board. The first thing I actually did, and scratching out my rubbing up my ink lines and putting all the scratchings everywhere and stuff like that. I'm pretty handy on pen, which is good. So that's typically how we start off the process with our concepts. And then ultimately I present my concepts to my staff and go, look, this is, after meeting with the client, the direction that we're going to do. And then that turns into, a fabulous CAD plan, or a beautiful Photoshop thing, or these days a 3D fly-through render and all that sort of stuff, which, it's fabulous to be able to do that, in the design process, because we all know what a landscape plan looks like. It's a bunch of circles on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to convince someone to spend $1 million on a bunch of circles. Doesn't really always, all those other aids and things work out really well.
Yeah, it blows me away how much difference it makes doing the 3D or even just elevations of a design, how much more visual it is for the clients. Like, because they can look at a 2D plan and think, oh, yeah, no, it looks nice. You've got a bit of colour in there. But then once you put some elevation in there, it just blows their socks off.
Yeah, it's just like the amount of trust that these people are putting in you over a bunch of circles. I always find that fascinating. Are you sure you don't want to go the 3D rendering? Are you sure you don't want to see the elevation? How's the house look? Bookended by these plant material. Are you happy with the colouring in this? Because you don't see that in a bunch of images stolen off the internet and a bunch of circles.
Yeah, I think it could be because a lot of people, a lot of the designers I've had on who I've spoken to, and some of their best work is when the clients have given them free rein. So that's probably what they're doing, is they're trusting. They've got you in for a reason, so they're trusting you that you'll do something that's amazing and what they're after.
Yeah, it's interesting though, on the free rein. I think a lot of the things that we do best for our clients are the partnerships. It's not my house. I don't have to live there. I need to sit down and have a discussion over the brief. It'd be a partnership himself, the architect, get the interior designer involved. We work all over the country. We've got to really understand the environment that you're in. So free rein I don't think anyone's ever really got free rein. There's something somewhere that pulls it together. And I think what we do quite well is be able to sit down and have those conversations with all those invested parties in there and come up with something that's harmonious and not necessarily our thumbprint. I never really want to be in a situation where I'm putting my garden, my thumbprint. It's just, I don't really care what you got free rein. That seems a bit of a scary or an odd thing to me.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That's the worst thing someone could say to me, because like that, it's like turning up to a project and I'll ask them what they're after, and they say, I don't know, just whatever you think looks good. So.
Well, yeah. And look, the other thing too is just making sure you've got the right client. The client's not the architect. The client's the person who actually owns the house and pays the bills. So finding yourself in a situation where you're sometimes designing the garden for the architect, that's had a couple of times over the year, and the client's go, what the hell's this? And I just look across the room at the other guy sitting over there going, yes, what is this? It's you got to make sure you don't fall into that trap. Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one. A good one like that with a guy who a businessman from overseas, and he had a representative here, and everything apparently was going through the representative, and I'd have to keep going back to the representative. So he does the client like this, and he's going, yes. And then I found myself in a really, really awkward situation in a room where the representative starts getting berated by the fact that he basically got everything he wanted, and the client didn't get anything. So you effing living here? Anyway, so yeah, avoid that at all costs.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. So what you've worked pretty much? Have you worked in every state yet around the country?
I've never worked in Northern Territory.
Right. So you'd be up for that if anyone's listening?
Yeah, I don't mind that. They did a big job in like the Red Centre or something like that. It'd be kind of cool.
Do you always visit sites, like go out there in person?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Taste the soil, check the humidity, see the aspect of everything like that. Have a chat with the locals. They're just turning up in a t-shirt and the thongs that I've got on here from Sydney and rocking up to Broken Hill. Hey guys, how's it going on? Just pretending to be an expert, that'd be a bit problematic. So yeah, we're working everywhere from down the Huon Valley, down in Tassie.
Yep.
So several jobs in Tassie at the moment, then right through to Victoria from we've done some fabulous projects out around Geelong and those regions, Bellarine, then across. I often do the trip around the bay, where I'll start Geelong, get the ferry and get the stuff out at the peninsula and then back over to the city. We've projects up towards the halfway between Melbourne and the snowfields. a beautiful project there that hopefully will open next year, actually, which hopefully everyone will find out in the media soon, which should be good. And then, right throughout, Wagga Wagga, all through New South Wales. I love working in the country. For a bloke who grew up on the beaches, I quite like finding myself at home and looking at the kangaroos and a bunch of paddocks. It's always good. And then all the way up through Queensland up to Port Douglas, as far north as we are at the moment. Gigs there, probably just like your backdrop, mate.
If you need someone to go and double check any measurements, just let me know and I can head up there for you.
Yeah. That's got a couple of big gigs up at Hamo, which they're always good fun to go to. Strap to fly to site, it's tough sometimes.
Yeah.
And a bit overseas too. So some stuff in New Zealand. A really good project over in Queenstown right now, which is very exciting. And over the years, we've worked in Indonesia and LA, and I'm going to say a gig in the UK where I was for a friend. So there's a bit of a soft touch there, but yeah, it was working around an old medieval ruin and building a perennial garden there, which was amazing.
That's awesome. So do you still get excited about that sort of kind of stuff?
Sorry?
Do you still get excited about working interstate?
I actually get outside. I can tell by the river and today, fried by the sun. Yeah, I do. I get excited about every job, whether it's we just did a courtyard in Bondi, and the brief from the client about having this kind of Marrakesh kind of theme and beautiful stone and this high level of quality. It's just a blank courtyard, like a tiny space. I think it was around about sort of 12 by 5 or something like that. I got super excited about it, and the finish that the boys have done and working with the stonemasons to get the right sort of edges. Super exciting, just as much so as you would, with a view out over the wet Sundays or a paddock somewhere. I don't. We're in a fortunate position where we can pick and choose our clients and our jobs. And I often look for the things that are a challenge. It's not a science thing. It's not, I like a good brief. I like working with nice people. I could be doing a couple of pot plants on the balcony or something like that. But if the client said to me, geez, I want this sort of plant, or what's your experience with these particular succulents or this type of cloud pruning? It's cool. It's fun. If you're having fun, and what are you doing it for?
Yeah. So
how do you ways of making more money doing other things? I'm sure.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd work in IT, but I just want to make money. They seem to do okay.
That's it. There should have been a stockbroker or something.
So what's the process like when when a new client contacts you? Like, how do you work out if that's a project you want to take on?
Well, I just left the Zoom meeting before this. Basically, Zoom's a big part of the world right now. We would get a phone call, comes through into the office, in through my EA, and she'll get a briefing on the job, and the next thing's meeting. So we're out on site, or if it's interstate, or if it's difficult to timing. With timing, we do a Zoom, and then get a briefing from her. I understand the architecture, understand the site, and it's straight onto a fee proposal, and then after that, it's definitely being on site and tasting the soil and making sure that everything's going to work out. And we always follow the process. Well, hopefully, always follow the process. It just depends if we're getting a rocket up us from an architect to deliver before Christmas. But we like to do a concept. Like I said, like to do our renders. I like to get our colours down, make sure people really have buy-in about what we're doing, or that I've got the brief right. Maybe I've completely duffed it. I've gone the wrong aesthetic, or just making sure everyone's happy with that look to start off with, because a lot of it after that, it's nuts and bolts. It's doing the docs that the council require, heritage and all that sort of stuff, and all things that we wish we didn't have to do. We prefer to be doing a plan so we can all talk about, and then something we can build from. But these days, you've got to jump through all these different hoops. So we'll get all that that institutional stuff done. And then after that, we produce a series of tender docs or construction docs.
What sort of time process is it if you didn't have to do all the red tape?
All the bullshit.
Yeah.
Look, it's we try and make it deliverable every 3 weeks. So that's usually the thing. So take in the information, and then you've got a good solid 2-3 weeks worth of drafting. That said, it just might be a ginormous job, and it's going to take a little bit longer, or it might be something really simple, and we can the old hand markup, and here it is an hour later. But yeah, just a good turnaround. And, you got to think that there's often a lot of other consultants in there as well. You might have to make reference to engineering, the architect's name for the house, the hydraulic engineer wants his say, the level 5 arborist is crying about his trees. There's all sorts of things, and you got to listen to these people, and you got to take it all into account. So if anyone's listening about this, geez, it takes him 3 weeks to turn that around. There's a lot behind the scenes to do it, and I've got to come up with the idea. But because I've got 16 people here, we've got to keep going for it. We get quite a few people calling us every week, or if not daily, about projects and things. We make sure we look after anyone, and if there's a problem in delivery, you've got to be honest in saying that you either can't fit it in, or you fit it in a bit later on. But we're presenting jobs constantly, and we've got a good team here that's that we've kind of curated and developed and incentivized and make sure that everyone's enjoying their time at NBD. I don't know what else you can do. Giving them these lots and lots of really beautiful projects to work on. I like to think that we've got some of the best working on some of the best jobs. So.
And what does the presentation process look like? Do you always do it in person, or?
I like a good Zoom presentation, to tell you the truth. I love being able to sit there and draw over all these products, usually with a day globe pink markup or yellow kind of markup. So sitting down, with everyone either in the boardroom, the client might come in, we'll sit down, glass of water, and here's your project, and I might be talking to them directly. But then you might have the architects or the builders, whoever, chiming in on Zoom. What a great tool! We show shares in Zoom, and that teed off with, I think everyone does around COVID here. Yeah, so and even still, maybe in these presentations, ends up being on a big screen. I'm sitting there with a mouse, and I'm still kind of drawing over all that. I think in any situation, I've usually got a lovely glossy set that we're handing over to our clients, another set that I've just kind of scribbled away, hopefully explaining myself, why we did what we did.
Yep. It's a good way, doing it that way, being able to make those changes in front of them is a good way to save on time, I think, as well, because if you're sending if you're sending it to them, and then they send it back to you, then you draw it, and then you send it back to them, and they say you didn't quite get this, and then they send it back. So that way they're seeing you do it, you'd save a lot of time.
It's the changes, but there's also sort of the reinforcing of the idea, and like if I've set out a series of trees looking out from a client's house and out in the paddock, in that meeting I can indicate where a starting point was this centre line, and then the offsets to here and here, and your visual, like your line of sight and your view extent and things like that. You can just do it in a conversational form. It's just so much better if you do it that way.
Yeah.
So many things can be lost in an email.
Yeah.
Email has no tone to it, and you can write what you think is the most pleasant email, the email that best describes what's going on, and people either read it thinking this guy's a robot, or geez, he's quite a man, or whatever. So never present with notes.
Yeah.
And let someone else read them. It'd be terrifying.
Have you got construction crews who you recommend for projects in certain areas?
Yeah. Look, we've got experience with lots of different people. So we've developed a good relationship with quite a few landscapers in different regions all around the country. We've worked out who we don't want to work with. We've worked out who we want to work with more. We've worked out, who we want to kind of pump up. And all these are by chance meetings. So some of them maybe not. Some maybe people have made sure they've bumped into me or something. I don't know. But we've developed great relationships with we think some of the best people, the best nurseries, helped people out. Like I remember going down and working in Melbourne early on and bumping into a crane driver that I just loved working with up until 15, 16 years later, and showing him how I was taught to lift trees by some of the big tree movers on the east coast of New South Wales, who did like the Olympics and all that sort of stuff, where they shifted 10-ton, 15-ton, 20-ton trees. And here we are trying to do like a 6-ton Japanese maple, and he's like, "Oh, we'll just pick it up like this." And no. What you're going to do is 4-point chain lift down through the top, or anchor points underneath and get the slings cradling the root ball. Stay clear of the bark. We can have it here, pivoted turn. So imparting knowledge that I might have gleaned or picked up from another expert and passing it on to the boys that we like to work with here. Yeah, sharing techniques. I think that is a cool thing. I think I can safely do that because I spent 15, 16 years on the tools. So grew up with son of a builder as well, so can swing a hammer.
Yep. Yeah, like you say, sharing that knowledge. Like the project we worked with you on, it was where I learned. Like you probably wouldn't even remember when you were talking about the garden lights not being positioned correctly because they were pointing at the trunk of the tree, and you were saying that creates hot spot on the tree. So you'd rather point it straight up in the foliage. I told my guys that, so now they've learned that, and I wasn't aware of that either. So yeah.
I think sitting there looking at lighting layouts and setouts, and I just left one last night, which was just beautiful. I managed to get all those perfect, and then turned up to a job this morning where we were positioning lights, and the bloody lighting consultant who never even walked outside. He was just mainly doing the stuff inside the house. But somehow Weasel explained the job to, because there was something like 200 grams worth of lights going in. Weasel explained that and started positioning them everywhere, and angling the lights pointing straight at the trunk. And you look out at night time, you wouldn't see diffused light up through a canopy. You'd see all these hot spots. So I already had to run into someone about that today. But it makes sense, doesn't it? You see diffusing up through the foliage or slight reflection off the trunk. You almost wonder why they actually put hinges on those lights these days. But if you do it properly, you shouldn't really need it.
Yep.
Yeah. Save a bit of money on the hinges. Yeah.
Good. That'd help.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you didn't have a mentor early on. Have you had one at all throughout your career, or a coach or anything like that?
No, just lost a lot of money and stuff like that. Lost a lot of money, got a lot of grey hairs these days. Look, I've been in my own business now. This thing registered in 2000. So what are we now? It's 20 years. 22 years, 22. So look, it was just a tough way to learn. I feel like I've kind of worked it out now. There's always stuff you should be learning. I think there's, I can say now everything's got a bit of a problem, but we've come up with what's working for us as a formula. And if it costs you money before, don't do it again, or understand why it did that. So I think my preferring a good accountant and sort of sitting down with them, looking at analytics, employing really great people like we have here now, and my back office and GM and things like that, bring to the table a lot of skills that I don't have. So I think listening and just after all these years, a bit of experience, so you don't don't bugger it up twice.
So have you had any employees who might have started with you as a graduate or early on in their career and then they've gone out on their own after?
Yeah, we've had a few that have started their own businesses. There's, I think Marcus, he just went out and started his own game. A lot of people have gone on to work with other, like I say, a lot of people. We've actually got really good staff retention. So we've had, I think, people that were looking for something else that maybe we couldn't offer have gone on to work with other great designers and suppliers as well. It's always great to go in and see some of the people that you've worked with now on a different field in our industry. I'm going in and I'm buying pots off them and plants and stuff like that. But yeah, we've a lot of people that have really wanted to keep working here, and we've got good staff retention. So thankfully, no one's set up serious opposition against me. That'd be terrifying. There's enough people out there already to compete against.
Did you do anything to out of the ordinary to keep the staff happy? Like anything outside of work or anything like that?
Oh, mate. Yeah, and I can't take all the credit for sort of driving through the staff around lots of stuff. It's been very much the general manager that's done that. But we make sure we hit every Friday at the end of each month. We've got an activity. We've got which we go and work related, try and get everyone's mindset and to build relationships in the office, friendly, cohesive workspace. But to everyone to be enthused about their projects. So on the Monday of the week, people that might have done a presentation through the week or have just completed a project like a new garden, they'll then brief the rest of the office on that gig and the design aspects and what was the challenges and all that sort of stuff. It's Christmas time, mate. We've got the big Christmas party coming up soon, which is always good. Trying to get everyone out of the boat. And that used to be a bit of a thing, just trying to get out on the old trawler or something like that and get around Sydney Harbour and have a look at the projects and have a bit of a dip later on. It's always a bit of fun.
Nice.
But we've got a good office here, so as far as the aspect goes, lots of light. You don't want to be that guy that puts their creative office in a dark hole in the ground somewhere. So lots of light. There's a good game of cornhole that happens on downstairs. There's ping pong table in the garage, or top barbecue overlooking the rooftops of Redfern. So I think you got to kind of do those sorts of fun things. But then a flexible work sort of situation, and COVID's kind of brought that on too. We worked out that our team can work really well remotely. We did it quite successfully. It was very good. Bringing the team together on Zoom, getting them to work in groups on Zoom, and then sort of then coming back together on building sites, using the office as a print station, stuff like that. It was amazing how well that was controlled. And so that's then kind of spurred the ability for people to do a bit of work from home, a little bit remotely. The projects down in Victoria, they can sort of set up various offices down there, and we can still have fluid side workspaces. Yeah, so that's been good. I think anyone who's not kind of offering flexible situations with work now too, they're possibly in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, is that your own detriment? Like, who needs to work exactly like 9 to 5 every day? Like, there's no reason for it.
Yeah, I just had a chat with a landscaper yesterday who's now doing 4-day work weeks for all his staff. He's got them working 10-hour days. They're very happy to, go from 7 till 5 or 5:30 with a bit of a lunch thing thrown in, and they're doing they don't work Friday to Sunday. Now that doesn't include his kind of his quantity surveyor and his back office. They're sort of doing, people answering the phones and that sort of stuff. But his boys on the ground, he's doing 4-day work weeks.
There's a lot of companies that I know of in America that do that, like a lot of construction companies. Like, they'll do the same thing. They work 4-day work weeks of 10 hours, and then they have the long weekend. And it's the benefit of it is you're spending a lot less time driving to and from the job and unpacking and packing up the vehicle. There's 1 day less of that you're doing every week. So yeah, it's only small amounts, but they all add up over a year.
Yeah,
And you get happier staff.
He's happy stuff. They're all Northern Beaches boys. They're all out there surfing an extra day. Yeah, all pretty good.
Yeah, and like what you were saying before, you got good staff retention. You'd have to if you've got 16 staff, because there's not a lot of people around to employ these days.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're occasionally we're sort of still expanding. I think we've still got room to grow and move. We do work right across the country. We're one of the few design firms that successfully work across multiple states and multiple jobs, and that sort of thing. There's a couple of other designers we bump into the airport occasionally. So it's always funny when you see next to each other on the plane. Yeah, so you need bumps on seats really to be able to deliver. So a couple other big gigs too down in Melbourne coming up. So yeah, a few more guys from south of the border. Probably a good idea.
Have you got any type of design that you're wanting to do, like whether it's in a certain state or on a particular project or anything?
Any type of design?
Any style of design. Like there's something you wish you'd get a certain. I don't know if it's it could be a certain design in other than the Northern Territory, just so you could knock off all the states.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Look, again, I can't really just put a thumbprint of I've always wanted to do X garden, and the next garden I get is going to be that. Yeah, because it's all based on this idea of partnerships between the clients and the architects and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, we had a fabulous brief the other day for a project down at Darwin Point, looking due west up the middle of the harbour. And I've worked there before, and it gets this just absolute kind of baking sun. And the client he's English and she's American. It was a Sydney-based architect, and they just love Australian natives. And we don't often get the call to do a real native garden, and that was fabulous. I'd been dying to do one. I wasn't going to put my thumb in and say, right, the next garden's going to be native, but we finally got the call up to do one with lots of sedgy grasses and juncus and that sort of stuff, and then twisted banksias, and then as you move further back into the landscape where the gaps between the neighbouring buildings to create a shadow sort of introduce a lot of tree ferns and all that sort of gear. That was fun. It was a bit out of the norm. We get asked to do a lot of kind of woodland gardens. We get asked to do a lot of succulent work, a lot of LA style, a lot of city subtropic, a lot of very, very kind of English sort of gardens, which do a lot of down in the cooler parts of Australia. And, these very romantic kind of style gardens with loose forms and, opposed by the odd sort of Buxus clouding and stuff like that. We do, and I really enjoy doing the perennial work. So harking on to all the things I learned back at the Royal Botanical Gardens, that sort of Piet Udolf Omen Van Sweden inspired giant perennial gardens. We've got one actually going in out Geelong, series pretty soon actually, which would be good. But we've done quite a few of those in the Southern Highlands, where we'll basically completely perennial out an entire hillside of, like an acre of Philopendulars and Stipers and Miscanthus and anemones and all that sort of stuff, and coming up with really beautiful patterns and things. So I generally find all those things, exciting to work on. Even with formal gardens, I love a good contemporary spin on a formal landscape. So forget the idea of a hedge that then sits in front of something else and the plants go behind and kill the back of the hedge that you just got as a border. That sort of had its day. But the idea of using sort of big expanses of beautifully clipped low flat buxus that might be 2 meters wide and sort of only sort of 500 high, and working with the horizontal forms and that sort of stuff, and maybe a bit of cloud clipping and all that sort of stuff. So really, contemporary stuff, more like that you'd find with with like some of the Verts gardens in Europe and things like that. Forget sort of Granny's garden. Not even someone told me like I really want a granny garden. I know what to do.
Have you been overseas to see gardens very often? Like you've been to Chelsea or anything in England?
That was the thing. I think as a young bloke earning $200 a week at a horticultural apprenticeship, I didn't have the money, so I used to buy lots of books, and I've to this day got a really serious garden book library. But then after I started working myself, and I was able to finally head overseas, to get overseas till I was about 22. The first thing I did was go straight to Chelsea Flower Show, and I went around the UK visiting the most amazing gardens. And I did the horticulture version of the Grand Tour. I made sure I went to the Bobley Gardens in Florence, and looked at the great gardens around Paris, and go down to the south of France, the Celtic, and all around there. Night clubbing and garden visits. That's my early 20s, mate. So to go to Ministry of Sound, and then the next day going out to a beautiful garden in the Cotswolds. Probably hung over with the sunnies on.
Yeah, it's pretty standard 22-year-old.
Yeah, standard 22-year-old. Maybe not the Cotswold, garden thing, but go to Stourhead or something like that. So it was, went to all those things over in LA, looking at Frank Lloyd Wright houses, New York, and visiting Connecticut, and all those sorts of places. Even checking out the great sort of resorts around Bali, and just seeing how those gardens are put together up around Woodwood and the Four Seasons Hotel, and I literally had like a checklist of things that I had to sort of get out there and see. Of course, to stand on the top steps of Versailles and all that sort of gear. Yeah, you think as a designer, you have to really. It's I took all I think I could possibly take out of the books. My early copy of Paul Bengay's Box Garden and Thai Garden Style, and that great book on Australian gardens shot by Simon Griffiths. The backs of the spines of the books were all buggered from the amount of times I went through it.
Yep. Have you ever been to Gardens by the Bay in Singapore?
Yeah, I did. I was lucky enough to be invited to do one of the show gardens there.
Oh, awesome.
And so I spent about a month over there between doing a recce and actually doing the show garden. And that was pretty fabulous. It is amazing the amount of effort and money and everything that government's tipped into that space. I was lucky enough to be given the grand tour of some of the hotel gardens and the private spaces through the contractors that we're working with, and to go through the back of the Singaporean nursery industry as well, and the fabulous stuff that they were bringing in from Malaysia, and just the way the different way the plants actually work over there. Multi-trunks, multi-headed, Dracaena Draco, so slightly more green, covered in orchids that you could pick up for $1,000. That might weigh about 6 ton. Fabulous stuff over there. Terrifying moment of going on top of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, and being taken not to the pool but the roof garden on top of the roof, and with no bloody handrail around the edge, and walking around up there looking at palm trees and like a 20-knot breeze. Yeah, I'm afraid of heights too, so that wasn't good for me.
That's pretty high up too.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a special trip.
Yeah.
Didn't really cover it, unfortunately, but Jim Foggy did. He always wins those. Yeah.
I went there when Alison Douglas did her. She built a garden there as well, so I thought I'd go over there and check it out. And stayed one night at the Marina Bay Sands. So that's pretty fancy.
Yeah, it was pretty fancy. Unfortunately, they didn't put us up there. We were in some sort of corporate hotel in the middle of town, but again, made a really good list of cocktail bars to go to in Singapore. You got to get it, you kind of mix the horticulture with other things, don't you?
Exactly. balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question for you is, who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
Oh, who would be a good guest? I reckon we keep taking it up to Sydney, mate. I think that's it's a good trick. I think interesting characters. Who have you had on from Sydney?
Quite a few. The first, because I started the podcast by driving up to Sydney because the first 7 episodes were in person. So I did Graham Rowe, Clint Brampton, Greg Soster, Ben Heyman, and Jason Hodges. So they were my first 5.
Yeah. Who would be pretty fab? So some of the great sort of interesting gardens that have been produced around the harbour. You got to think like Dean Harold's done some fabulous things.
Yeah, I've had him on. He was a good guest.
Dean's been on. That's good.
Yep.
Matt Cantwell's always been great for the industry.
Where's he from?
Secret Gardens of Sydney.
All right. Yeah. I think I spoke to someone who worked for them at some stage. Might have been a fella from Canberra.
Matt recently had Fiona Brockhoff up at his office for her book launch in Sydney, which was pretty good. Michael Bates Landscaping. Michael builds a lot of really fabulous gardens for us in Sydney. In fact, we're just finishing off right now one of the most significant harbourside projects I think ever been constructed. It's for a private landscape. And Batesy would be pretty good. Loves a chat.
Oh, perfect. That's what I'm after.
Cool.
All right. Myles, can't thank you enough for coming on. Absolutely love your work. And it was great. Yeah, great to talk to you. So thanks so much for sharing it.
Thanks, mate. No doubt catch up soon.